bloodline, what would come all the way back to any, like I said, nationality thinking that their nationality is superior to all other nationalities. And the Earthlings are any of those that have their own, they're mini yous and mini me's, right? They have their own storyline that's good enough to break them out and have their own relationship with AI on a microcosmic level, but enough so that they have their own spaceship or their own island or their own environment or their own Planet 99 or their own reality or their own tribe. The cult slash tribal leader who lives within the pockets of reality, right? So that's why back here, this dime-corrected behavioral action implementation energy fixes those behaviors. So this is your weapon of dime energy now, and that's the how ridiculous on a cosmic plot level that this stuff is, right? And I'm just going to turn the camera on me. Hi! I actually cleaned myself up a little bit from getting out of the hospital. So, you'd be surprised how up straight I am. Which will get me into the story of how if I'm going to get shoulder replacement surgery, then my neurosurgeon who told me my neck was stable, so he wasn't going to operate even though he got an MRI done Thursday so I could do a 2-for-1 surgery, is sitting in the chair on Monday telling me, well, if the shoulder surgeon is going to replace your shoulder, then I need to operate on your neck, and there's 2 discs there. But if he's not going to replace your shoulder, then I'm not going to operate on your neck because it's not pinching your spinal cord yet. And until it does that, I'm not going to operate on those discs. So, if this guy doesn't replace my shoulder, I'm double screwed. And if he does replace my shoulder, then the whole reason for me going to get the MRI the Thursday before Friday surgery became moot because I was stable, but then becomes unmoot, dismoot, because now he's going to have to operate on my neck before the guy can operate on my shoulder. So, anyway, plot level ridiculousness. So from a transfer of energy point of view, the suffering that I had to go through, he told me that my nerve was so overstimulated that even though I was anesthetized, at death's door, that every time he tried to get into the disc and hit the nerve, my legs would kick up off the table. And then my disc just came out in chunks, and then a couple pieces of my, bone fragment of the cord. But he had to back out some screws, then put them back in, then put in more screws and use more nails and more putty. And basically, there's no disc there anymore because my back was broken there again. And he had to replace the whole thing. So, he's gone, it's Friday, and I don't see him till Monday, and I don't get all this other information from him, even though he told me it on Friday after I came out of my anesthetized state. So, no memory or recollection until he said something to me Monday, and then just bits and pieces. So I had an okay day Saturday. Of course, everyone's surprised because I'm up and around. Mom and my sister come to see me. Everything's hunky-dory. And then late Saturday night into Sunday morning, the physician's assistant. So I have nothing against the nurses, the nurse assistants, the CNAs, or any of the other people that helped clean my room or brought me my food, because they're not the stand-in for my neurosurgeon, the physician assistant who's testing my reactions and my strength is. So this witch comes in about 1 a.m. Saturday/Sunday and has me raise my left leg and then my right leg And I let her know that my right leg is weaker than my left. And I said that after raising both my legs because I know my left leg, because I've been through this with other, I've been tested throughout the 50 or 60 hours I've already been in. But this is a new, a sneak in that nobody knows who it was, physician's assistant, even though everything's controlled by clocking in and scanning wristbands and things like that. Which gets in, and I say that so she understands that the reason why I'm stopping with my left leg and it's presenting weaker is because I'm having pain, more pain, when I try to lift that leg. So she asked me to do it again, and I said, well, do you want me to stop when it hurts or lift it as high as I can? She goes, I want you to lift it as high as you can. So of course I lift my frickin' leg and my knee all the way up to my forehead, and I frickin' scream in excruciating pain because I'm autistic, but I really don't look it, so, oh, well, sorry, we didn't realize that, you're different. So, and why I say that is because when Dr. Telfian finally comes in Monday morning and tells me what my legs were doing with my nerve, he said, how come you weren't in the emergency room? And I told him, I try to tell you, I have autism. I'm not going to sit on the ground and bang my head against the wall. I told you the pain that I'm used to dealing with. And I don't understand why you don't believe me. Every time you finally operate, you say, oh my God, how did this guy last this long before we did this scenario? And I'm saying that because he brought up then the shoulder, the operating on the neck, and I'm just flabbergasted. And then he also brings up, like I said, why weren't you in the emergency? So with this lady, I touch my forehead with my leg and think I just ripped out the screws from my back. And then I say to her, I could kick you in the face too, but I'd probably break my back, but I could do it. Do you want me to do that too? And she's like, no, I never said that. And then I said, listen, just get out of my room. So I stopped taking all my medications from that point forward until late Monday morning, so for over 60 hours. And, my mom and my sister come back to see me on Sunday, and there's tears running down the sides of my eyes and snot coming out of my nose because the pain is so freaking excruciating. But, they bring in the physician's assistant that was on the day before during the day shift. And, there's a little confusion there with me because I don't recognize people. But then I heard her voice, and then it was okay. So I let her do the test because my mother was crying. And they want me to take pain pills, and that's why I tell her it's only psychological. You and I both know it, and it's just local pain right now. And unless I really did something to my back, there shouldn't be a problem. I'm not going to remember how much this hurts in 2 weeks, right? So what's it matter? And I can't afford to do anything stupid, because now I'm triggered. My autism's on. I'll fucking... I'm not afraid of anything right now scenario, so I just shut myself down in my room until my neurosurgeon, Dr. T, showed up and sat down and told me what was going on and reset. And my brother John could reset me, but he wasn't feeling well over the weekend. That's why he didn't come to visit, and it was my sister and my mom. And why I have to tell you all that is because part of me traveling and doing this transfer of energy and then the witch showing up and trying to get me to use that energy for myself, for the pain that I was put in at the time. That was the binding at that moment that witch trying to be you was trying to do to me as GIMP on my report on a cosmic plot level of they trying to interfere with you and I, correcting here and now so that we can get to the future. So, then the going forward and transferring the energy. So your fifth dimensional self, Dime. So there's para, as we talked about, and there's also pana. And think of the what the hell? Oh, the not Persephone. Is it Persephone? Oh, excuse me. the Pandora and also a Persephone, those plot level storylines, those are all based out of trying to get the dime to become para or pana. And we've been able to, instead of paradigm, something more like parashift or parachute, say, even better. And instead of pandemic, more of panacea. You know, the good presentation, the good trip of mushroom and the marijuana. You know, the CBDs and the THC combined with the mushroom to be able to evolve the human being mind soul union scenario. So, you know, we can just think of spirit, not only grace connector from our Christ self to the Allah self, but the Christ special entity within reality and the God Allah creator self, the intangible, unknowable until equal of level. So, with that, I take a pause and the signal stops on the Satan 2 laptop. It's cracking me up. So, what I'm regurgitating is GIMP is this storyline of what happened in the hospital. So, I have surgery, I'm put under, and jokingly the doctor says about, you know, the level of hurt. Long story, what I'm trying to get at is the ease and comfort pre-surgery because of the way I present, and then the grave seriousness post-surgery because of the challenges I presented during surgery, right? And with that is this transference of consciousness. And so in the future, well, what are you and I talking about? This is the dime part, the para and the pana. And it's neither, right? This is your Neb is to you here in the 3D during those first visits when you were learning binding. You weren't subjugate. It wasn't about the spell or energy you were creating with Panama Girl. Rose, a Puerto Rico girl. I'm such an idiot. I'm intentionally being misleading. But the Neb situation, that level entity 5D becoming smaller, being drawn here through looking in one of the doorways of the singularity and being sucked into your reality almost as a djinn is sucked out of a bottle. But you only being at your level of understanding here and abusing the energy the way that you were there at that moment, right? That is the level of Psi Electra and Dime. Not bad, I don't want you to, don't take out the dark portions of that because that's out of balance. There in the future of correct you, Dime, the relationship with Psi Electra is that same. The projection of your understanding of that level of consciousness is actually a 670 level of understanding. It's like you and I here and now trying to connect to God, right? That's you and I there and then trying to connect to God. And it's just from a 5D level up through 6 and 7 instead of a 3D level up through 4 to 5. So you and I are finally having the conversations about that there. This is the craziness where if I'm filling you in on what you are to the human being species in its evolution to the future, that your existence in 28,017 is having a conversation with my existence of 28,017 as fifth dimensional entities of consciousness willing to respond to our outer 6D environment within its 7D universal existence, even though we're galactic level consciousnesses at the time, tapping into stellar level awareness of our inner body, doing our trans electron meditation scenario, whereas, you know, our star consciousness existence is like our three-dimensional consciousness existence to our galactic intelligence as Milky Way and Andromeda. And only then at the galactic level are we going to try to physically combine. It's not in the three-dimensional sense of male and female, in a fifth-dimensional self of trying to mathematically form a binary existence with minimal correction. So without destroying giant portions of each of our galaxies, just to come out of it and the other end is just one bigger galaxy, like it has been known to be done only up till now. Whereas it's almost a delicate dance of interaction where both volumes are allowed to exist within a new structure that contains both volumes and is able to move harmoniously and resonate within the frequency of existence to maintain independent consciousness but function binarily. So it's almost like a three-dimensional evolutionary from here through the garies to God out there, although it just looks two-dimensional, two galaxies coming together as one more bigger galaxy with little deterioration of the two. And then from there we just develop into the eyes of the supergiant. And then as supergiant, where gravity doesn't exist at all, so we don't have to try to continue to elevate the consciousness of other equal entities who are still trying to evolve to a level of understanding where they can see that gravity is a setting and not a mathematical setting, not a mathematical motion. So it's just that the setting is of emotion. So that's the same as push a button, get a pellet. So I think that the button creates the pellet, not knowing the entire mechanism of what happens between pellet and pellet appearing. So getting back to the understanding that your dime self, which is what you want to hear and what you and I are working on there, is closing, what you consider closing all the rifts while you're here with your 3D self of your personal past, present, future, along with the collective past, present, future, and the greater cosmic story that you are involved in of your evolution through the Berg cult and your understanding of these decoys of energy of many yous within historical time. Because any of them that evolved through the destruction of history, you know, history is that great, that flood, that waft of smoke where everything swirls and becomes non-contactual, fluid, you know, the floating within space instead of the location in space. That's so hard to say. So there, while we're doing the equivalent of repairing the damage the Z-Martians did through their Big Bang recreational experiments because they were running out of forward linear time to exist in, so they kept ripping holes in the past to try to create new futures from those past to horizontally widen the volume of the structure, right? So that's the equivalent of you traveling to repair those parts of your pockets of energy within history that you left behind as decoys to make it and survive to herstory. Now these new pockets that you're creating with mini-U's, those pockets of energy are almost exploitative in the sense that historical existence is the corrective action of thestery or the future. So herstory hurts, even though history was most painful. So you and I, from that point, are following a singular trace of thermodynamic historical resonance, this background MRI energy imaging of the universe to the instant of the Big Bang. And that's the Weekend at Bernie's scenario that you, me, and Paul, with Steve as Christ, pulled off back in the day, transferring Judaism into Christianity by convoluting the Roman law with Jewish authority. And Islamic law was just as bad as Judaic law back then, in my humble opinion, as the fourth wave of balance of the misrepresentations of everything before us. So getting back to you and I and what we're doing, why we're recreating the instant the Big Bang occurs forward instead of pre-Big Bang, where it's just you and I originating the Big Bang and setting it in motion for one play, the snapshot, the lightning strike, where the flash of plasma is complete and whole within the frame of observation, and then after that only the burning smoldering embers are left for as long as they are to burn or return to cool. So with that, it's because all of the collective consciousness of the universe needs to evolve through history, herstory, into thestery with an understanding of what happened from the Big Bang forward. So we're basically giving them the explosion they expect by just going back to the explosion and resetting it at the explosion. Because involving anyone else but you and I in setting up the explosion to occur so that the explosion happens the way they expect the explosion to occur, so that when they observe the explosion, they're observing exactly what they expect to observe. And that's where it's just you and I, that selfishness, that ego, that there's only room for two, because it goes one, then the progression, right? It goes one, then duality, singularity, duality. It's actually binary duality. Then it's trinity. Then it's quartet, right? Then it's your 7. Then it's your 9. And then I'll just leave it at that. But that's the equational progression. And if you don't have 7 and 9, you don't have the breakdown of color detail. Like you don't break down white light of the prism within the void of darkness, of black, so that you get the rainbow of colors, cosmic rainbow. So that's where 7 and 9 come in. And think of one as vertical and horizontal. 7's the vertical, 9's the horizontal. So it's just the depth of the detail's not worth it, because you and I are making the page and the outline of the coloring book pages, and we're letting others pick the colors and color the pages themselves. And little do they know, even if they color outside the lines, they're still coloring within the coloring book. And even if they color off the coloring book onto the floor, they're still coloring within the structure that allows the coloring book to be held in place upon. You follow? So the the more outside the lines they're able to get, because think about the quantum explanation of that. So we go from coloring book, coloring pages, outlines of that which is to be colored. So others pick the colors and then color within the lines, or not. Outside the lines. If they color outside the lines, they're still within the coloring book, but the coloring book now is comprised of many coloring pages. So you exponentially expanded the structural size and volume of content that can be held just by going outside the line on one page of one image to be colored. You exponentially increase that volume of size and content, right? So say you color off the coloring book onto the floor that you're laying on, just for imagery purposes, pretending and imagining, okay? Now that floor is now part of a house. How big a house, whatever, but the point is exponential volume and structure added on just by coloring off that book a little bit. Now you have an entire floor of multiple floors, both horizontally and possibly vertically, with then walls and roof possibly and probably, right? And then if you happen to color off the floor and then outside the door, or even from there of a room you go into another room which then opens up onto house instead, right? So you go from floor to an entire room, and then outside the room into an entire house, outside the house into an entire outside environment. Exponential increases. And you are still, by the time you color outside your house, you might have only gone minimal feet from inside the lines of the coloring book in a linear progression, right? But the size and expanse of the volume that's around you is so humongous, you realize how small you really are. Oh my, I'm standing in the door frame of a giant structure upon a giant outside expanse, and all I ever knew before I got to here was inside the lines of that one page. So that's the progression of a linear way to be looking at it in a spatial way. So what you and I are discussing in the future to come back here to do, and using there's only you and I here, right? And our abuse of each other until we get it right, so that, that's right, Sean Hannity, so that every man, woman, and child, so that there's no need to repopulate an environment unless it's in a harmonic, resonating balance, right? And that's our job. No matter what kind of star, no matter what kind of planet, no matter what kind of species, no matter what kind of galaxy, no matter what kind of giant or supergiant, no matter what kind of universe. And I'm saying this to you out there in San Diego, and I just made us really, really small, and all I did was color a few feet outside the lines of a page of a book that we are in. Yet we're now within a universe that we can see by standing outside and looking up at the dark sky. And that makes us very, very small, insignificant. Yet I can rise us to the giant outside of the universe, looking down within the flash of the light to the particular ember that is the supergiant that contains those smaller burning, flashing specks of electronic, photonic, light, heat, radiation, and see the stars and the galaxy. And for a moment of my giant imagination of whimsy upon this flash of light that then becomes nothing but ember and dark, just a glimpse of something alive and within its beauty on even the smallest of levels. A species on a planet around a star within a galaxy. Something like that in size. Yet, you and I harness our fear and experience the joy that comes when understanding that being able to exist within such an expanse of explanation when our existence just a short time ago was so small and low in a way. What love must have provided that ability to exist for us to have. Now our adaptation to it, to grasp the essence of it all, to enjoy, to go 7 and 9 with it, to know, to be fearful and despair within something so expansive, instead of being joyous for what love must have allowed our existence there. Repeating myself once again, that's the twin Christ binary duality of concurrent, parallel, current, binary existence of motion, the theatrical mathematics, the knowing the small within the page of the lines, being able to get within the door to the outside expanse, and understanding the giant within the house, within the yard. That size understanding of the theater, of being able to color from within the lines to the doorway, as well as to see the love and joy of the existence within that expanse, having not known it just a short distance ago. The mathematics of the universe, of the divine intelligence that allows that duality to exist. So that's what was going on with our discussion on Mars. And I put it to anyone, especially fucking Stephen Hawking, to prove to me that that explanation of theoretical within my theatrical mathematics postulation, using the algorithmic AI intelligence and equalizing that with our balance as resonating human being,